Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit weird. I'm kind of sick again. Surprisingly. Not really surprisingly. I don't know why I keep getting sick. But the story I want to talk about was when I was in high school. You see, I was in a program where high school students could go to our local college to take dual credit classes. We had to take the usual writing and math classes, but on the side we were able to pick extra classes that our college offered. The classes were already paid for, so I picked the art classes initially. That included classes like digital art, which was just a class teaching how to use Photoshop, and a painting class that was very helpful in learning technical skills. That one was honestly my favorite. I wasn't the best painter, but I was praised for how fast I understood techniques. And that's about it. Apart from that, these aren't the classes I would like to talk about, though they would make a good video later. What I would like to talk about is another class I had taken, macroeconomics. It was available, and back in high school, I thought it would be cool to learn about the economy because I wanted to start my own business. Of course, it didn't go exactly how I thought, but it was still an interesting class to take. A good way to expand my horizons. I had no expectation going in, but oh boy, maybe I should have. And I don't want to bash my teacher at all, because it seems like other kids were able to catch on to the lessons better, but I didn't get anything that was happening in that class most of the time. Fortunately, 50% of the class was just everyone talking about their life and weekend. These chat breaks usually gave me a break when I needed it in that class. However, the other 50% was just writing notes off a PowerPoint as fast as possible. And I feel, again, my own opinion, that the terms and topics weren't really absorbing into my head by just writing it down. Despite that, I wasn't completely lost, and I loved the lesson about the housing market being used as an example of an economic cycle, showing us the effect of supply and demand on the market by the rise and fall. Of course, it's a very simplified version of the economy. I know that, but, it's still an interesting lesson. And how the housing market reflected this phenomenon. Other than that, the subjects washed over my head like water off a duck. I had a hard time understanding subjects like bonds and stocks, which were the more advanced topics. Without looking it up to correct myself, so I could be totally wrong, what I could remember was bonds were like savings accounts, and stocks was like gambling, but betting on if your stock would increase or not. Like I said, my brain didn't really understand the terms without examples, and I don't know, something more than a long-winded definition with terms I didn't understand. Googling it now, I know I'm mostly wrong, but you get the point. And this is just a start. As the lessons got harder, the more I fell behind. Maybe others can learn terms and topics easier than me, but copying notes as fast as possible while listening to the lesson just doesn't work for me. It's too much to focus on. With all that in mind, you can probably imagine how caught off guard I was when a professor announced that we would have to pair up into groups and make a presentation about the subjects we learned and tie it to real-life events. I, of course, was quick to pick out a team. Well, maybe not as obvious, I was a very shy kid, but for some reason I was hit with this burst of courage. Just before picking my team, I had realized that no one was really moving around after the assignment was explained, which is why I rushed out of my seat to pick the best of the class, in my opinion. Which I'm grateful for, as you'll see later in the story. As I mentioned, I was taking a class in my local college, so older folks were able to join my class. So when I was choosing my team, I had picked two older students. In class, they always seemed to understand the lessons, and they were both pursuing economics to get a business degree. The names I'll give my teammates will be Alex, Jess, and Elton. Alex was one of the older folks, as he seemed to be in his mid-30s or younger, and he was a great talker. He'd always share stories about his life, making everyone laugh, and talked about current events that happened around the reservation. I also think he was the professor's favorite, as he would chit-chat with her half the class, so that was another reason why he would be a good pick. Jess, on the other hand, was quiet but very organized. When I got behind on notes, she would always have it completed in beautiful handwriting that was always organized and color-coded with side notes she had written down. Her notes also summarized slides perfectly with the main points nicely laid out. I believe she was in the same program as me, so she was also another high schooler, but maybe a bit older. I think she was a senior. Last but not least was Elton, a chill guy who worked in construction and was another adult that was on our team. He was quiet and very polite and reminded me a lot of my uncle. While I was happy for my team, half of us didn't have working phones, which isn't really surprising as many people in my town are low income. So Elton had suggested using Discord to keep in touch, which we all agreed to. It was easier for all of us as all of us had free access to campus Wi-Fi, and there was spots in town where they offered Wi-Fi as well. And Jess, shout out to her, seriously, had made a schedule for all of us to follow with milestones and when we should all meet, which she also scheduled because the other 2 older guys had jobs. As the days dragged on, we had our first couple of meetings that went without issue, but we noticed a troubling pattern. We had noticed that Elton was surprisingly silent in our group chat and was coming less and less to the meetings. To be fair, he had work and had no phone service, but it was a bit worrying as he didn't have any way to show his progress. To make up for his absence, our meetings focused on what slides he would present in what order. This would just make it easier for Elton for his research, as he would already have an outline and know how we were presenting. Since Alex was the other adult in our group, he was responsible for relaying information when Elton was too busy to meet us up or text us, as he hung out with him often. But as the assignment due date came closer, Alex started to go MIA, and that was a problem as he was our only way of reaching Elton, and the last time we spoke, he didn't have his slides done. Me and Jess were already done, and understandably, Jess was getting a little worried. Well, a lot worried, as she was also responsible for putting the slides together. I tried to comfort her, even though as they were getting things done very late, they were adults and they probably knew what they were doing. It was concerning nonetheless. Not knowing our teammates' progress made it hard to gauge how close we were to being done. However, even if it was done last minute, our assignment was finally done. I felt bad for Jess, as she had planned everything and was still worried at the last minute. I felt bad for Jess as she planned everything out and was seriously worried about the other 2 finishing their part of the project, only for them to barely reach out the last minute and submit their work. It was done, but I feel very sorry for her sanity. But because of her planning and organization, I was able to finish my work on time with the deadlines she had set out. And I was able to ask her questions about the project during the meetings. Then presentation day came. I had been very confident in my presentation. My part was after Jess, and I would be giving definitions of terms for the rest of the PowerPoint, and how it tied back into our event. It was supposed to be the simplest part of the presentation, and I had even written out notes on what I was supposed to say. But it wouldn't be as simple for me, as it went terribly wrong. You see, I had a bit of social anxiety in high school, and I thought it'd be okay if I didn't look up when I spoke. We were required to look up when presenting our slides, and it docked a few points, but it wouldn't be a big problem because it barely affected the final grade. Yet, as Jess's turn ended, the nervous pit in my stomach multiplied tenfold. I tried my hardest to present, as I could feel the eyes on me as I presented. I could feel how much I was sweating, and I was so scared that the class would see it. I had a hard time reading my notes, and I was so nervous I had to go back and reread my lines. It didn't help that I ran into a couple of typos, and since I was reading my notes word for word, I read it as it was written. After realizing my mistake, I would have to go back again and reread the words. Then I ran into my 3rd typo, and I just stopped talking altogether. I panicked and was too embarrassed to go back and reread my notes again. It was honestly nerve-wracking. The whole time I was just wondering, how could I mess up something so simple? Beats me, but you know. My mouth wasn't cooperating as my speech turned into incoherent mumbling. I honestly wanted to just leave and hide in the corner. Right when I was reaching my breaking point, Alex had gently taken the notes from my hand and continued the presentation. Well, not all of it. He would ask the questions presented on the PowerPoint and then prompt me to answer part of them. This got me out of my head a little bit, and it made me start talking again. After, he would state the examples I'd put in my notes, and I was so relieved because my brain had totally checked out after I messed up the first 3 tries. Of course, I felt shitty for my performance. I knew I would have trouble speaking to the class, and I even tried to prepare for it. At last, I still messed it up. Turns out that the first few errors in my notes were the only ones, and I was even more embarrassed after that. I apologized profusely to my group when it was all done, and I even told them I would talk to the teacher after class to see if she could dock points only on my grade. They insisted it wasn't that bad, but I disagreed as this counted as an exam, and I didn't want to be the reason they got a lower grade. I still talked to the teacher, and she agreed to give me a different grade than the rest of the team. And when she agreed, I thought for sure I got an abysmal grade for my presentation. However, to my surprise, it wasn't that much off. We had gotten congratulated on having the best and most understanding presentation in our class, and while I got docked points for my bad presentation, I had got 100 on everything else. My professor stated that my section was very detailed and understandable, even if I didn't present it right. I was so thankful for my team as they were so understanding and nice to me. I'm glad that since that experience I've gotten better at talking and presenting. It is my first time presenting a project in front of the class and there is only room for improvement. I still have problems with speaking, but that has to do more with how I speak, as I have a little bit of a stutter and slur in my speech. I usually speak only 10% of the day, if I were to guess, as my online classes and work don't really require me to speak that much. If there are any lessons to learn from the story, it's that if you do your worst and hit rock bottom, then that's just a start, and it's only up from there. Everything is up for improvement, and I believe you can do it. And that's it for now. I do have more school stories, as well as work, that I would like to make a video about. But for now, thanks for watching. And if you like my content, then I welcome you to like and subscribe for more, because subscribing helps me know that you like my content and encourages me to make more. Be safe and have a good day. Bye bye!